Shangri-La, Atlantis, the Garden of Eden. For centuries, people have searched for and spread rumors of lost paradises hidden away in distant lands or otherworldly realms. But after our last adventure, we think paradise may have already been found. It was during an unusually warm October that we left Ohio and headed north to Michigan.
We drove for hours into the evening, stopping occasionally to stretch our legs and enjoy the fresh air. Finally, the Mackinac Bridge came into view. Spanning an impressive 5 miles across the waters between Lake Michigan and Lake Huron, it would lead us to the Upper Peninsula.
We arrived at our motel, where we would rest for the night before departing on our adventure to Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. The next morning, we were greeted by brilliant maples bursting with reds and oranges.
We got our things loaded up and headed out.
We were in awe at the brilliant fall colors surrounding us as we made our way towards our trailhead.
At the trailhead, we unloaded our packs, inspected the trail map, and then headed out. Our plan was to hike north from the trailhead, towards the shores of Lake Superior and Chapel Beach. From here, we would head east, camping at the Cove's campground. The next day, we would retrace our steps back to Chapel Beach and continue west towards the Mosquito campground. Here, we would stay for one more night before hiking back out.
Even this far north, and this late in October, the leaves in this area were mostly yellow and green due to a warmer than usual summer and fall.
But regardless, the openness of the forest and the warmth of the sunlight filtered through its canopy filled us with a sense of joy.
While we hiked through the woods, I saw a tree hosting some interesting fungi.
So this is Ganoderma applanatum, also called artist bracket, and it's called that because the underside of the pore surface you can draw on. There's actually, at the base of this tree, what looks to me like dead man's fingers. It's called that because it looks like black mummified fingers. Actually, one of them is producing spores when I tap it, so it's kind of cool.
Although artist conch sometimes grows on living trees, the presence of dead man's fingers meant that the tree was likely injured or rotting. But throughout the forest, there were plenty of other hardwoods growing healthily, like maple, birch, and beech trees.
And we stumbled across some peculiarly shaped trees, which resembled Native American trail marker trees, though these were likely bent through a natural process.
Further up the trail, we also saw some horse's hoof fungus growing on an old beech tree.
And we've actually used these to create fire before. They're really good at catching a spark for tinder for a campfire. But even better than that, right behind it you've got this beautiful paper birch. And we have birches like in Ohio and in the Midwest, but up here you've got the really beautiful white paper birch trees. And the further north you go, the thicker the bark will be. And that's the kind of stuff you can use for like canoes and other crafts. And this is
And there were also signs of yellow birch trees nearby, like this seed-producing catkin.
Nearby, there was all sorts of wildlife activity. Chipmunks and squirrels scampered around, and in the trees were signs of woodpeckers that had visited in the past.
Further along the trail, we entered a section of the woods where the fall colors had revealed themselves a bit more prominently.
And we came to a small overlook of Chapel Lake.
So this is not the Great Lake.
No.
I mean, I knew it wasn't. Well, I figured maybe it's like an inlet or something.
This is a Great Lake, but not the Great Lake.
The distant fall colors were beautiful. As we returned to the trail, I saw a plant with an interesting feature that you can see during the fall.
So this plant that's sort of wilting is called sensitive fern. And it doesn't quite look like the ferns that you might imagine when you think of like a rainforest or a jungle. And usually you think of ferns as having spores on the underside of their leaves. But this one actually produces one single frond that has several sporangia on it. And it kind of looks like some sort of weird rattlesnake rattle or something, but all the spores will come out of this. And this is usually the season where the leaves will start turning brown and wilting away, and this will be the only sign left of that plant. It's really cool looking though.
We came to another area just off the trail where a patch of hemlock stood, and in the distance we could hear a rushing waterfall.
A campsite, maybe?
This would be a cool place to sleep now. Yeah. Although I wouldn't be surprised if someone had stealth camped here. It's just too nice. It's definitely a good lunch spot.
Wow. Dude.
Whoa. That is nice.
Just down the trail was another overlook that offered a view of Chapel Falls.
Whoa!
The water slid gracefully down the smooth sandstone surface, dropping 60 feet and feeding into the nearby Chapel Lake.
The trail took us to the stream feeding into the falls, where we crossed over to the other side.
We had barely scratched the surface of this beautiful landscape, and it was already filling us with feelings of both nostalgia and excitement.
Actually, right now, it kind of feels like when we reached the top of Yosemite. I don't know if you guys feel like that, but...
Oh, a little bit, yeah. It's like kind of dark.
Yeah, we got that waterfall sound in the background. It's definitely got like a uniquely Michigan feel, I think. And it's nice to actually be out when the fall colors are at their peak.
We had some lunch at a small picnic area, where we could see the falls in the distance.
The openness of this area almost made it feel as though we were children in a park.
Plus, there was a great little tree to climb up.
Like I'm playing. Only one person can get up.
The tree's limb had been worn smooth from years of use, and from it grew some northern-toothed polypores. And further up ahead were some more mushrooms sprouting from the ground.
These are some pretty common nondescript-looking mushrooms, but these are mica caps. And they're called mica caps because if you look closely, they have sort of like a sparkly, almost mineral-like texture on their cap that resembles the mineral mica. And this is actually an edible mushroom, pretty commonly found. I don't think it's known for its good taste, but I've never actually had it myself, so I don't know. Well, in the spirit of October and the Halloween season, this is probably one of the creepiest plants out there. It's called doll's eyes because its white berries pretty much resemble a bunch of eyeballs from a haunted demonic doll. And equally as creepy is the properties of the plant. If you eat these berries, they're fatally toxic and they'll most likely kill you.
But there were some edible treats nearby as well, like these oyster mushrooms growing on an old beech tree.
We continued hiking, eager to see what else the landscape had in store for us.
We hiked on and had a feeling that we were getting closer to the shores of Lake Superior.
I think we're just about to the beach right now, and we can tell partially because the ground is sandy. And in the distance we can hear either wind or...
Yeah, I think it's like the wind from the lake or something. That's gotta be water, right? Is that water or is that hills in the distance? I
think it's water.
a blue line. That looks really high up though.
It does look high up, but I think it is water.
As our trail descended, the horizon somehow seemed like it was above eye level, giving the water the appearance of hills.
I mean, since we don't live next to the ocean, I mean, this is probably like the closest thing we have, but this is just like, you're just in awe of it every time you see it.
And then, all at once, we emerged from the forest and saw the lake in all its glory. The sight of Chapel Rock, the expansive lake, and the fall colors was overwhelming.
Below us, the waters crashed and churned against the sandstone bluffs, and in the distance, they lapped up against the sandy shores.
The textured, carved-out cliffs rose out of the cerulean water, supporting the colorful trees above them.
We eventually continued along the trail, which ran parallel to the shore and gave us a fantastic view of the water.
Every time the path meandered back into the woods, it would wind back towards the lake, and every time we felt compelled to stop and look.
The fall colors were much more vibrant in this area, but equally impressive were the high sandstone bluffs, with their colorful surfaces painted over time by nature.
But nature was also a persistent sculptor. The waves crashed against the cliffside, patiently carving out intricate patterns as they have for countless years.
The first glints of warm evening light appeared on the water's surface as we continued hiking.
Once again, the trail wound in and out of the forest, taking us ever closer to tonight's destination.
We actually made really good time today, all things considered. I think it really helped that this entire trail has been completely flat.
That's a huge help. But a hindrance is that about every 2 seconds there's an amazing view.
Yeah.
The sun was beginning to set as we emerged from the woods and came to a sandy cliffside reminiscent of a Grecian coastal landscape. We watched as the fiery clouds of the sunset's last moments faded away, and then continued along the sandy trail.
Tonight, any anxiety that might normally be associated with hiking at night was completely absent.
There's so much open sky with the lake.
Yeah.
Not really that scary.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking it was scary, but now that you mention it.
The pink glow of the sky and the openness of the lake gave us a feeling of complete ease. And even at night, the views continued to amaze.
This place, it just doesn't quit.
It doesn't quit, man. That's a good way of putting it. Just when you thought you've seen it all.
We had hiked only a bit further into the woods when we saw something scurrying in the shrubs ahead.
We just saw some glowing eyes. Did you capture that?
I'm pretty sure it was a fox. I don't think I got it on camera, but
Yeah, it looks like it might have been 2 foxes even.
it looked like it was eating something. Let's go take a look. Yo, bear.
It looked like maybe it came through here. There's like some broken twigs. I got that there. Whoa!
Whoa.
Look at this!
Oh my goodness. I knew it was eating something. That's a rabbit's leg or something.
That is gnarly. It's got, yeah, it looks like it to me. Whoa.
Well, that's some serious blood. Holy cow.
Holy cow.
The severed rabbit's foot was a bit of an ominous sight, but now we were sure we had seen a fox enjoying dinner. Hopefully, it would bring us good luck, and we'd be able to see it again.
Ooh, I think I tore my hamstring.
After a bit more hiking, we finally arrived at our campsite. We started unpacking our gear and setting things up.
And before setting up my shelter, I wanted to test out a new piece of gear.
So I've foregone my metal tent stakes that I usually use with the tarp, because I've got this beautiful knife that one of our fans sent us. It's a Vertus knife. And this thing is like, this will shave you.
In the meantime, I was getting hungry. I brought some bread, butter, meat, and cheese for some backcountry sandwiches.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Gracious me.
This is great. Wow, dude. A little bit of trouble, but totally worth it.
Since it's fall and it's going to be Thanksgiving in a month, I thought it'd be fun to make something a little special for tonight. So in here I've got ground up powdered graham crackers. Then I've got some pumpkin filling, cupcake tins, sugars and spices, and everything nices. And we're gonna make some little mini pumpkin pies.
And along with those, I was planning on preparing a treat of my own.
I'm making a little Chinese treat tonight, and it involves this GoldenEye looking satellite device. I measured this flour out, but I'm using less than I brought, so I'm just gonna eyeball this and see just how much water I need as I keep going. Kind of a bunch of trial and error. Here I've got some active yeast. Usually the bread we make is flat, but this one will be fat and supple. Got this completed dough ball, so I'm just gonna set it in here, let it rest and let that yeast get all yeasticated. And I'm gonna start the fire in the meantime.
Because we were at the group campground, there were still some embers in the shared hearth that we used to start our fire.
As Andrew tended to the fire, I got started on my little pumpkin treats.
So we've got some sugar, which I'm gonna add to the butter, and it'll go into the crust. And then here I've got nutmeg, cinnamon, and a little bit more sugar, and that's gonna go into the pumpkin mix.
I really hope this isn't too much butter.
You can never have too much.
And I didn't really bother to measure this out beforehand, so I'm really hoping it comes close to the amounts. That'll work in some way.
There's zero doubt it's going to taste good, so no problems. And if it didn't taste good, it must have smelled good, as the fox from earlier had made its way to our campsite in search of food.
The next step was to take the graham cracker butter mix and mold it into the tin cups. Next, I mixed some pumpkin puree with sugars and spices and a bit of peanut butter. Finally, I scooped these into the tin cups and topped them with some more of the graham cracker crumble.
We would be using my steaming device as a raised platform to cook the treats. This way, they would bake as though in an oven while sitting on the fire.
We warmed up by the fire as we waited for the little desserts to heat up.
They were nice and steamy fresh out of the fire. Now, it was time for a taste test.
Well, here goes nothing. It's nice and hot. It's really good. Yep. I think these were worth it.
And then it was my turn to give it a taste.
Man, that is good. Especially since we're camping, it's like you don't get to taste these flavors that often. Well done.
It tastes nothing like pumpkin pie, but it's good.
It almost has like a fruity aftertaste.
Now it's time for some steamed buns. This device is not actually a satellite. This is a little thing meant for steaming, well, anything really. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fill up water in this big pot about to the height of these legs. So that way we're not boiling the food, we're just using the steam to cook it. You don't want the water to seep through the holes, because then your buns get all soggy. Break some pieces off. Okay.
And then it was onto the fire with the buns. After we took them out, they were a bit browner than I expected.
Yeah, I think because we're cooking over fire, there's no avoiding like a little bit of roasting and toasting. Yeah, big ones had a little charring on them, but big one's a little doughy. Little ones are pretty good.
Does it taste like Monto?
Close enough.
They're not nearly as fluffy as Monto, but as you chew them, they actually do vaguely taste like Monto, so yeah, not bad.
Need something to eat with it though. Good job.
The cold night air may have prevented the dough from rising enough, but the steamed buns were quite tasty nonetheless.
And you can also use the dough to make dumplings. First, Andrew was trying a sweet one filled with our pumpkin filling.
Not too bad.
And next, one filled with tuna.
It actually tastes like, kind of like a baozi, just different seasoning. Because once the tuna's heated up, it actually kind of works with it.
After that small feast, we sat around the fire a bit to enjoy the night air.
Do you ever view life, or at least your life, as like being in different eras? And like,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I feel like sometimes I have weird, like, I just have feelings that it's a different era.
Oh yeah, no, like this type of weather right now reminds me a lot of not too long after I graduated college. I remember I went to you guys' house for Christmas one year. What a weird time that was, but so nostalgic and so much fun.
Fall in particular, and just the cold season, it's always like it feels a lot like change is happening, just because like we've got the new year just around the corner too.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to think of yourself as like this character that you can mold and turn into someone better. Like even if you're not always doing that, at
Oh,
least you
yeah,
can like
yeah.
keep progress.
Isn't that a weird thing? That we know what we can do to make ourselves a happier, better person, but we'll still do things that are counterproductive to that.
Yeah. Just so much of life is just like delayed gratification. I don't know.
It is, yeah. No, it's like doing things now for a better life later
Yeah.
is just like a fundamental principle, but it's sometimes you're like, no,
So hard
I want pleasure now.
Yeah, yeah. It's like my friend says, everything in moderation, including moderation.
Don't do too much moderation.
Yeah.
Might go crazy.
I think that's a good motto to live by.
Maybe it was just the fall season or the unique scenery, but something about this place renewed us and gave us the sense that we were starting a new chapter in our lives. And as the stars danced across the sky, we were fortunate enough to get another visit from the fox. Seeing it this close was an absolute privilege.
It was a brisk morning, and we started the day off right, with a fresh brew of hot coffee. And I used the rest of the coffee to cook my oatmeal for breakfast.
That's not too bad. That's coffee oatmeal.
About what you'd expect today.
It tastes like the way a hotel smells in the morning.
After a short breakfast, we tore down our shelters and packed up our rucksacks. Now, it was time to backtrack on the trail we had taken to get here.
And in the light of day, we got to see some incredible scenery for the first time.
The clear waters were almost a turquoise color, more reminiscent of a tropical island. But instead of palm trees, there were brilliant warm hues of autumn leaves. And amid those leaves sat this beautiful peregrine falcon.
We eventually came to a stream where we filled up on water.
And just past it on the path was an open area, where you could see a waterfall that it fed into.
The bright white sandstone made for a surreal landscape as we enjoyed the scenery from high up.
But in the waters below us, several tourists enjoyed the landscape from a ferry.
Of course, we enjoy exploring the land by foot, as it allows you to not overlook some of nature's more hidden treasures.
This is why I often love looking in dead logs when it's the autumn season, because a lot of times you find some really cool treasures. This is a fungus in the genus Hericium, which is related to lion's mane, one of the fungi that a lot of people like to collect and eat. And this one's also edible. I mean, there's not really any poisonous lookalikes that look like this, so it's pretty hard to mistake it for anything else. And it actually looks pretty fresh.
Along with this choice edible comb-tooth polypore, we found some old, desiccated puffballs.
It had felt like a short hike back to Chapel Rock. Now, instead of hiking deeper into the woods, we would make our way towards the beach.
We descended some steps leading to the beach, and from here we could see Chapel Rock from a new perspective.
The tree atop it had a root that appeared to reach out across the air. In reality, it was once supported by a now collapsed rocky arch. The trail took us along the edge of the forest for a while, but below, we could see the beach.
Eventually, we reached a set of steps leading down into the sand.
Today was much sunnier and warmer than the previous day, so there was only one thing to do.
The water was frigid cold, and we had to get out every so often to warm ourselves up in the sun.
All along the beach were smooth stones. And sometimes there were perfectly flat ones, perfect for skipping along the lake's surface.
It was pretty clear who the best stone skipper was in our group.
But these rocks were also beautiful in their own right. There was a whole palette of colors: reds, blues, purples, orange, green, yellow. All of them tumbled naturally into smooth stones.
There were gray and blue basalts, red and orange rhyolites, smooth and glassy chalcedonies, and intricate granites and agates.
And even the sand was beautiful up close.
We headed back into the water for another dip.
And then it was back onto the shore to warm up in the sun. After drying off and getting dressed, lunchtime.
The sounds of the waves and the surreal landscape created a dreamlike ambiance.
Eventually, it was time to get back on the trail. We had spent a lot of time at the beach, but now we had to make some progress.
Andrew has just informed us that it's 4 miles to our campsite, and we've got about 3.5 hours left of daylight. So for us, that is just doable.
Somehow, the scenery got more and more amazing. The cliffs and rock formations seemed to become more intricate and impressive, and the fall colors became even more vibrant as we went along. It was really true. This place just did not quit.
As we stood out on the ledge, we looked out at Grand Portal Point, the type of landscape that you wouldn't believe existed in Michigan if you hadn't seen it with your own eyes.
And soon we reached the top of Grand Portal Point by foot. was a big, rocky expanse with even more impressive views.
Literally, every time we go to an amazing place like this, I think to myself, I will never see something this amazing in my life again. And nothing this amazing will ever happen again. And every time I'm proven wrong.
Yeah, it's incredible how unbelievable this place is and how close it is too.
Yeah.
I mean, relatively at least.
This has definitely surpassed anything I could have imagined, honestly.
I feel like I'm in like Greece or something.
It does have that very like oceanside feel.
Yeah. It's so cool.
How on earth is that a lake?
It's so crazy when you look out on the expanding shore and how it just disappears into the horizon. And just like, you could literally walk from here all the way to there if you wanted to.
You could, yeah.
And what's weird is those little cliffs, we were on there.
Yeah.
At least some of them. I think, at least.
One of those way out there.
Yeah.
I think we were, yeah.
We were really at a loss for words. No amount of prose or poetry could really adequately capture the beauty of this place.
As we continued along the shore, we found ourselves once again aglow in the evening sun's light.
When the last pink wisp dissipated away, we returned to the trail and hiked through the night.
And tonight, we were meeting up with a friend and fellow YouTuber, Up Trail 71, aka Bob, and his wife. As a Pictured Rocks veteran, he was a great resource in helping us plan this trip.
I smell a fire.
It's a good smell.
Oh, I think I see a fire too.
This is it.
Oh.
All right.
Mosquito.
Mosquito campground.
All right. Oh, there's like a building.
Yeah, what is that? Looks like Christmas lights or something. Hello. How's it going? It's our boy Bob. Is it Bob yet?
Hello.
Hello.
Guess it's not Bob. Bob's a rustic guy. Maybe this is his.
He's also a hammock guy though. Is he here? I thought he was here.
Bob.
No, there's no Bob. Did he say he was going to be here?
Yeah. Up Trail 71.
Robby. It's Robby, Bryan, and Andrew. Oh yeah!
I'm happy that you're the one with the really big setup.
Oh yeah, we got the fancy setup.
Oh, that's you. Okay, awesome.
Hey, oh, good to meet you.
Oh man, so
Finally.
good to meet you.
Been so long. Here we got some visitors for our campsite tonight. Adventure Archives. Robby,
Hello.
Andrew, and Bryan.
And then up right here, we've got Up Trail 71. We got Bob and his wife, and he's got his camera right there. And we're all just a happy family.
As we get settled into camp, we prepared a simple but tasty meal. Instant udon noodles.
A little video I sent you link. I've been in the high waves before, and it's scary. Oh, that's right. I forgot you had that drone. People, eh? They have YouTube.
Really strong soy sauce flavor, actually.
Super good. Yeah.
It's the ritual, right?
Oh, that's really good, actually.
And to go along with it was some delicious hot apple cider.
Does it taste like fall?
Yeah.
Were you about to say that?
Tastes like November 1st, specifically.
Nothing says fall like some apple cider, right? You know what? That'll warm you up. All right, I got a tuna melt concoction here. I don't see how it can go wrong. It's tuna and cheese, so.
As for me, I had some gnocchi with tomato paste.
Definitely an Andrew Lin concoction right here.
This is the type of stuff Andrew would eat at home.
You think we're joking, but that's true. Anchovies?
It tastes like SpaghettiOs.
It does.
It's actually not too bad though. It's kind of filling and it's really hot too, which is good.
I feel vindicated.
After enjoying our dinner, we set up camp and chatted with each other before heading off to sleep.
It was a quiet morning. Before the others woke up, Bob and I went to check out the nearby shore.
About 8:30 in the morning, maybe 9 o'clock. Me and Bob are the only ones up. This place, it probably doesn't need to be said at this point, but it's amazing.
Back at the campsite, I prepared some breakfast. Some oatmeal and coffee, as per usual. And into the oatmeal went some butter and freeze-dried strawberries courtesy of Bob.
Oh man. Strawberries are good.
Towering above our shady campsite were tall maples swaying in the wind. As they rocked back and forth, their colorful leaves fell to the ground in a whimsical dance.
As we all woke up, it seemed the world around us was awakening with us. A breeze rolled through the canopy, and sunlight started filtering through the leaves.
With the sun up, we decided to hit the trail.
before leaving, we all wanted to take a look at the lake one last time.
Now it was back into the forest, and this time for good. We decided to take a longer but more scenic route that would bring us by Mosquito Falls.
Even though we were now away from the spectacular scenery of the lake, the forest was no less impressive, with its glowing leaves that danced in the wind.
The leaves continued falling from above as we neared Mosquito Falls. The forest was beautiful all around. Along the way, I saw a beautiful lacy maidenhair fern, Adiantum pedatum. The ginkgo, or maidenhair tree, derives its name from these ferns. The further we hiked, the more the autumn atmosphere captivated us.
We've been hiking on the shore for such a long time, but now it's a really picturesque forest, and it really captures the fall feeling now. It's really nice.
But there was something more to the forest. It felt both familiar and new, comforting but mysterious.
Maybe it was just the openness of the woods, or the sight of the leaves twirling daintily in the wind.
But somehow, these forests felt magical, impossible, surreal, like the sight of a single violet growing in the middle of autumn.
After several moments of peaceful hiking, we reached a churning stream cutting through the forest.
Now, the water flowed, slicing into the sandstone landscape. The forest got more beautiful the further we hiked along.
Even without any of the shoreline and stuff, these are some of the most beautiful, nicest woods we've ever been in.
It feels really open, like Allegheny. It's got like a really welcoming feel. I don't really know how to describe it.
I mean, the best way I could describe it is that I feel like I could just stay out here forever.
Yeah.
As long as the weather was like this, I could just find a place to hole up and sleep on the ground.
With the surreal atmosphere of the forest came a sense of tranquility. It had felt almost as though we had been transported to another dimension, or an ancient, long-lost land.
Finally, we made it to Mosquito Falls. The water rushed along as it cascaded down.
And as it flowed above, fallen leaves swirled about in the murky waters, sinking into the mysterious depths below.
In some parts of the forest, the ground was covered in leaves as red as rose petals.
We continued on, hiking deeper into the forest. The bright leaves carpeted the floor, and squirrels scampered about all around us.
We soon reached a strange change in landscape. Here, cedars and hemlocks grew, and there was water all around us.
Bob's saying this is an old beaver dam, and you can see all beyond that there's this flooded sort of meadow area. That's total change in scenery.
The old beaver dam was piled high, and here and there you could see the gnawed stumps left behind. Just beyond the dam seemed to be a whole different world, a sprawling, marshy landscape.
And not far from there, a garter snake rested in the leaf litter, warming up in the sunlight.
Eventually, we reached a junction and made our final hike out.
It was something we had first felt just driving north, a mysterious feeling of magic and mystery, of being transported somewhere new.
Perhaps it was just the change in environment, or the excitement of autumn. Maybe it was just the joy of seeing beautiful scenery.
Or maybe it was something more than that, something beyond our perception.
Hiking at Pictured Rocks had filled us with an intangible sense of renewal. We aren't sure why our adventure along the shores of Lake Superior made us feel like we were discovering life for the first time. But whether or not you believe in the divine, one thing's for certain. If you need a change in perspective in life, there's no better way to get it than through the wilderness. We were nearing the trailhead now, but just before we got there, we decided we wanted to find a quiet spot to sit down and enjoy the fall colors for just a little while longer.
Everything's quarter mile today.
We're gonna have some fresh hot pasties. I'm just kidding, they're called pasties, but it's like a sort of chicken pot pie, empanada, Upper Michigan thing.
This is how you know it's going to be a good meal.
That's a bad day you just had.
Oh, these are cool. Wood or something. I feel like I should pet this bear.
I love this aesthetic.
It's so cool.
Bear juice.
Okay, cheers.
Yes.
Pasty taste test.
It looks exactly what I expected it to look like.
I'm gonna cut it.
Use ketchup on it.
Ketchup?
Yep. Just put a little bit on it and you like it. This is how I usually do mine. I'll bust it up a little bit. I'll take the ketchup and just squirt a little bit inside there. Something like that. And that's how I do mine.
Yeah.
Good. So it reminds me of Christmas for some reason.
Oh man, it was like a hearty meal.
Thank you, Bob, for the meal.
Sure.
It was delicious.
You got this thing with mushrooms on it. cherry burl with mushrooms, Andrew.
Oh yeah, burl is the growth that we saw.
Might just be like the storeroom that we wandered into. So they store all the old beers and stuff. Or they just had a run on paraphernalia.
Really restock this warehouse.
Yeah.
Take care, man.
Shout out to Bruce and Elise Phillips and their family, Bruce, Elise, Elliot, Graham, and Sam. Also a big thank you to Charlie Joe, who wants to give a shout out to the Killer Raptor Death Clan in Melbourne, Australia. Also a shout out to Philip and Jessica Liu, who want to give a shout out to their brothers in Columbus, Ohio and Orlando, Florida, as well as their moms, dads, and sister in Taiwan and Colombia, and all the homies from SGV. Finally, a shout out to Yuki and Chase and Griffin, who would love to say hi to their son, Skylar. Thanks.
Special shout out to T. Bryce Ryan, who would like to remind everybody to keep sharing and caring as always. Shout out to the YouTube channel Trails We Hike, Season 2, coming in January. And shout out to Sunjan Huang and his family. Thank you all very much.
And shout out from Jason Bourgeois to his brother Sean, and Joe Fender to all outdoor lovers to keep spreading care and happiness for our planet.
Finally, thanks to Expedition Research LLC, myhikes.org, Sean Wu, Jacob Milliken, Keith Trice, John Truitt, Anna McBride, Hong Long, Greg Cribb, and Jim Potts. Thank you so much.
It's just as open as Allegheny.
Sorry, I tried to hold it.